Today, I wanted to share a strategy that I borrowed from cognitive behavioral therapy. And I'm just going to focus on how I work on changing my negative thoughts, and also how I support myself through positive self-talk, which sounds silly, but it's actually a very powerful skill or tool. So first, I wanted to say that, a lot of the negative thoughts that people tend to have are automatic. It's almost like when someone bumps into you, what's your first reaction? That's what I'm talking about. It's the reaction that happens, and you're kind of like, whoa. Sometimes the thought came out of nowhere. But to me, it's like we might not always be able to control that first thought, but we might be able to work on the second thought, the third thought, the fourth thought. How fast can I say that? And then each time we work on changing, maybe that fifth thought or fourth thought, it gets easier and easier, and our brain starts to learn how we want it to think. So I'll give you an example of this. Let's say that I make a mistake, right? And the first thought I have is, I failed. I'm a failure. Um, I'm never going to get this right. These people are going to think I don't know what I'm doing. And so you see how the negative thoughts just start to build. And then, of course, I'm going to have an emotional reaction as well, that's compounding all this. And then maybe my behavior at this point could compound it further. Like, what actions am I going to take? Because the cognitive behavioral therapy triangle, which is essentially that there's a feedback loop between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. This kind of creates this almost like this cyclone at times of negative. But the beautiful thing is that it also provides us with opportunities to intervene on any one of these levels. And you'll see that I added in here systems because systems, and by this I mean like the little environments that we are a part of, whether that's family or coworkers or a political climate, all of these things do interact with our feelings, behaviors, and thoughts. At least that's my perspective on it. So, the one thing that I like to do is I like to rewrite negative thoughts by taking a pen or pencil and using paper. Research shows that there are benefits to handwriting stuff if possible. Of course, like if handwriting doesn't work for you, that's fine. But I wanted to encourage people, if you have the ability to do so, actually write it out. And then what we can do is there's a lot of resources they call them like challenging irrational thoughts or disputing negative thoughts. There's some different terminology. Uh, they love their buzzwords. But basically, the idea is that I'm going to start to kind of pick those apart. And so I might say something like, okay, well, yes, I failed, but that doesn't mean that I need to label myself as a failure. And am I only focusing on this one thing that I tried? Because maybe I'm forgetting all of these other things that I did perfectly well today. And I'm just focusing on the negative because we have a negativity bias, right? So I'm going to start kind of trying to do this. And one way that I like to approach this is to think of a supportive person. This could be like a teacher, a coach, a friend. It could be even a character from a TV show, and ask, what would this person say to me if they heard me say these negative thoughts? And then that's one way that I like to kind of rewrite them. And then by practicing these thoughts and practicing changing it, I'm actually practicing new ways of thinking. And I think a lot of times we forget that we can practice new ways of thinking just as we could practice any other skill, right? Like when we teach a kid to brush their teeth, you don't assume that they just know how to brush their teeth, right? We're like, okay, you do it this way, then you do it that way. I'm going to help you. I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to do it for you a little bit. Um, and then the more they practice, right, the better they get. And we can change. And we can also change our thought patterns. And I think a lot of times we forget that we can change it just because it's abstract, right? We're not seeing our thoughts like on a screen, at least usually. So that's one thing that I like to do. And then the other piece to this is I like to practice what they call positive self-talk, which is essentially talking to yourself in a positive, supportive, encouraging way. And this can be like right sized. Sometimes people think that I mean like toxic positivity, right? Like making everything out to seem shiny even when it's not. But a lot of times they think there's opportunities to support and encourage ourselves, and we're missing those. So, for example, let's say I'm about to do something challenging, like speak in front of a group. If I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is, it's a lot of people. This is going to be hard. I might be anxious. How is this going to go? Am I going to mix up my words? I'm going to mix up my words. That's obviously not going to put me in the right headspace to do my best. But if instead I start thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to coach myself through this. Um, and then again, I can also use that resource of like thinking of someone who is particularly encouraging or like how I like to be supported because everyone's different, right? Some people like kind of the mean coach vibe. That doesn't work for me. I want like the supportive coach. So for me, I might say something like, you know what, Kristen? Like you've practiced, you've put in the work, you are ready for this. If you slip up and say the wrong thing, most people won't even notice. Just keep going, or take a second, take a breath. You don't have to rush. Um, you're here to connect with people, enjoy it, something like that, right? And to me, this kind of positive self-talk can be very helpful. Now, I want to say too, this is not shaming. I think sometimes people are like, when we're really depressed, it can be very easy to feel like, we should be feeling a certain way or thinking a certain way. Like we get in this should mindset. And to me, this is more, I like to think of it as more like a gentle kind of push or like a gentle practice. We're just trying to practice both dismantling the negative and introducing like a positive or more balanced view because it is more balanced and more accurate. Like if we failed at something to just simply say like, yes, I failed at that task. Am I a failure? No. You know, do I have other chances here? Yes. Can I repair the situation? Often we can usually repair something. We might not be able to fix it, um, but often there are steps we can take towards repair. And we just need to kind of be gentle with ourselves and just take it one step at a time. So that's just it for me on this thought component. I'm also going to do a video on the emotions or feelings, the behaviors, and then the systemic portion little by little. If this is helpful, please like, share, or subscribe. If you have questions or thoughts about how you, or if you want to share how you practice this component, please share in the comments. And yeah, I hope some of this was helpful. Thank you for listening.